So, I'm gonna be frank. I did not intend to remix a currently viral song. I know that the remix I'm about to show you is currently viral because of Stranger Things Season 4. I did watch Stranger Things Season 4, and yes, I do remember that this song was in Stranger Things Season 4. I promise you that up until about the time that I was finishing this remix, I realized that it was from Stranger Things.
Hello, motherfucker.
And I made it too far to turn around. Besides that point, upon finishing up this remix, I noticed that, nobody else remixed this. The Kate Bush song got all of the love from Stranger Things. And this Journey song got none of the Stranger Things love. So I am here remixing this Journey Things fucking idiot can't talk Separate Ways track. To be honest with you guys, I actually was about to remix Faithfully by Journey. I went to their Spotify, started listening to it, saw Separate Ways, thought, hey, this definitely needs a remix, and started it. But here we are. I have a remix now. I am totally going to capitalize off the cloud of Stranger Things, even though that goes against everything that I'm about. And I really like this remix, so I hope you guys enjoy it too. I'm going to break it down for you guys today. Alright, so first things first, before we start breaking down the track, I'm just going to go ahead and play this first build up and drop for you guys. Let's check it out.
Here we stand, worlds of hearts broken into two.
What?
Sleepless nights, losing God, I'm reaching for you. Feeling that it's hard, then change your mind. If it can go on, then survive the time of your
So there it is. That's the first drop of the remix for you guys. I'm not going to show you the second drop today. I'm releasing this track this Wednesday. It's going to be out for free download, YouTube, SoundCloud. I'm going to wait until then for you guys to hear the full song. Really excited to put this out. Let's go in and dive into the different parts that make up this track and why it is special to me. Okay. So the first thing I noticed when I heard the Journey track was the lead synth line. Obviously, Everyone's known this song for a while. It's a very iconic synth line. It came out in the early 80s, I believe, which was a time where synths were starting to get really popular in rock music. So let's listen to that synth line right here. The next thing I had to do is grab the vocals for the song. So this original vocal file that I got from YouTube actually features the original vocalist, I believe, Steve Perry. I did want to use his vocals. However, I couldn't salvage that. The new singer for Journey is Arnel Pineda. He has an amazing story as to how he actually joined the band. You should definitely check that out. I ended up not liking the original Steve Perry vocal due to the quality of the acapella itself.
Here we stand.
You can hear that hissing noise in the background. I mean, the older the song is, the older the recording, and I'm assuming that this was recorded in 1982 or 1983 when the band released it. It's really hard to separate the vocals from it. Here we have the remastered version where I was actually the same version I grabbed the synth from. I went ahead and put it through lowloud.ai, one of the best websites out there. I also did a master rebalance on it with Ozone to bring the vocals out a little bit more before I put it through there. But after a little bit of cleanup, this is the results I ended up getting.
Here we stand. Once upon us broken into two.
So it wasn't exactly perfect in quality, but I was able to get it to a level that at least can be masked by the rest of the track and not sound dynamically hideous. As much as I really wanted to use Steve Perry's voice, I think they're both great vocalists, but I've always had a soft spot for Steve Perry's voice. I think he's just one of the best of that generation. So I went ahead and grabbed this vocal. I had to place it out a little bit selectively to make sure everything was lined up with the syllables and whatnot, and then we went and grabbed the little piece of this vocal to make the build-up so you could hear how that kind of just transitions. Now you hear that little click in the loop, and that was something I was thinking about fixing, but then when you take it over the whole beat, then it kind of just vanishes. So I was pretty happy with the way that came out. I have a couple other uses of the vocal here, just like stuff to make effects and whatnot in the song. We have this little vocal shout here as well. After I got the vocal and the synth into place, I wanted to go on to making my own synths for the song. So the first thing I did was go into a respace and take the original bass melody, the original kind of chord progression of the song, and turn it into a MIDI so that I can use it to structure my track. So here we have that here. And then, of course, I layered it with a little bit of sub here to fill it out. What I do from there is take the chord progression MIDI, the bass notes from this MIDI, and move it up to a pad where I can draw the rest of the notes for the chord progression. So that sounds like this. Let's play the Reese and the sub and the chords together. Next, I took the same exact chord progression for the pads and I threw it into an arpeggiator. Now this pad, this respace, this arpeggiator right here, this is all from my Proppa Patreon packs. I put out a preset pack every single Monday for Serum. We have over 100 presets here now. You should definitely jump in. I have a lot of great stuff. This is pretty much the only sounds I use now. So this arpeggiator comes in like this. I use a macro to open the envelope eventually. Right here on the build-up, I decided last minute to hang on the last note of the chord progression to really create that tension. I'm really happy I did that. Couple more random things you have here in the break or the verse. You have this power chord I found on Splice that just hits perfectly in E minor directly with the track and kind of promotes that feel of the stadium rock of which it came from. I complement that power chord with a kick, a crash cymbal, and a stomp to create some nice impacts throughout the track. Moving on to some drums for the build-up, I have this recording of all of my tops drums, so basically hi-hats, shakers, ride cymbals, percussions, clap, all into one audio file so I can manipulate it on build-ups with some effects. We also have a snare drum here that's automating with a delay, and the dry is going down while the wet is going up. It's kind of just giving it that rolling feel. So it starts off as a basic little structure here. This is something I show on my TikTok, actually. And then you kind of slowly hear this. Now, I know the snare scatters kind of sound a little bit all over the place, but when you put it into the context of the track, it really sounds like someone is rolling on the snare drum. I have a nice big drum fill here from Splice that I stretched out to kind of give that stadium rock feel as well. Right on the pre-drop, you hear a couple sounds. I actually soloed all the synths together, recorded them to a new track, and created a reverb sweep with them. I have a little guitar slide here that's kind of simulating someone sliding down the neck of the guitar to intro like a heavy part of a song. And then I have this feedback loop from Splice that's kind of just coming up in volume to sweep up. And then a lot of my tracks, I do like to complement the pre-drop with just this tiny little short sweep, just to give it a final little impact moment. Moving into the drop, we obviously have the vocal right on the drop. This wasn't as planned in the beginning. I actually planned on putting the chorus, the hook, over the build-up and then having the first part of the drop being empty, but someone talked to me about actually structuring it this way, and I'm really glad they did. I feel like the hook coming in on the drop is really what people kind of want out of these songs, so I decided to leave that there. The main synth from the song is going on throughout like the first part of the drop as well, just kind of while the vocal's going on, it keeps the main elements of the song alive. I mean, the most important part about this entire song is really the bass line. When I was making this track and I made that respace and the pads and the arpeggiator, that's a process I've gone through many times before to no end result. There's in the back of my head this whole time, it was all about this bass line working. I knew that the chord progression was right and the bass notes actually could make a good bass line. How I was actually going to turn this into a 16th note thing without it being dull was the question, and it ended up being a lot easier than I thought it would. A normal 16th note bass line, I'll play that for you right here, sounds like this. But I actually went in and I transposed every third note up an octave, and it gave me this really awesome step effect. I started with those 16th notes on the bass line at first, and I was hearing it, and I knew that transpositions needed to be made, but I really wasn't hearing the full picture. And as I was trying all these different transpositions until I took that every third note up, I feel like our brains can almost subconsciously feel the cycle of every third note, and it gives you a, what's the word they call it, for a secondary rhythm to kind of hang on to. So I was really happy the way that bass line came out. This is a preset from my Patreon as well called Fat Boy. It's one of my favorite ones. I use this a lot. I think the only tweak I made to it for this song was a little bit of movements in the filters differently. I used some Cashmere Essentials on it to get some initial fuzz, some initial distortion, upwards, downwards compression, but I didn't do too much there. I did a little bit of overdrive too to fill in the empty dynamics. Some FabFilter Pro Q with some dynamic EQing to make it a little bit more punchier and pull down on some of the like higher frequency slappy dynamics of the sound. And just a final low cut and high cut to automate whenever I need. As you can see, I did try a good amount of iterations for the bass, some different layering, some different synths. Ultimately, the first thing that I tried was the one I stuck with, and I didn't even need a sublayer for this one. I felt like it just sit perfectly. So I got all of those initial elements in place. The next thing I needed to do was build a beat around it and make sure that it could all work on an actual house beat. I have a kick and clap structure here, pretty basic, except I did add a little bit of a clap and kick reverb bus, both individual, kind of doing their own thing with a very light amount. The kick reverb bus is heavily high pass to make sure no sub is leaking through. Clap reverb bus is very maintained, and I just wanted to kind of promote that progressive house big room feel of the track that I was getting. After the clap, I got some tops in place. I think the first thing I did was these hi-hats. This is one of my hi-hat samplers I've made through Logic with some samples. It's literally just 2 open hi-hats layered by different envelopes and some closed hi-hats on 16th notes. So that sounds like this. I have each individual hi-hat sample panning certain ways to kind of promote the stereo width of the track, something I highly recommend. I have this ride cymbal in there. Usually I will introduce a ride cymbal on the second or third drop of a track. I decided for this song it was needed to kind of push the energy, and I would end up changing the energy in the song with different synth work rather than percussion work. I have a shaker and a tambourine sample here. Both are from my Patreon, actually. They're ones I built using different shaker and tambourine sounds with different combinations of stuff. Again, to kind of promote that progressive house, trance, big room feel of the track, I did put a very slight reverb bus on this hi-hat and rides and shakers group just to kind of open it up a bit. I feel like it really adds to the room without taking away too much from the headroom. Halfway through the first drop and then left in throughout the rest of the drops, I do have a couple extra percussions that come in. This comes directly from my clap sampler. Let me play that over a kick, clap, hi-hat sample here so you could hear how that incorporates. I also have this percussion from my Patreon. I repitched it a little bit, rephased it a little bit. Have this other percussion for my Patreon. And let's put that all together. There's a few drum fills in here. Got some different crash work at play. Couple different risers in here, especially this one at the end to really create tension. One thing I did here that was pretty cool was actually automate the X point of the top point in the LFO. So here is the first half of the drop all together. One thing I forgot to point out is the saw arp. This is another sound from my Patreon. I actually just automated this up over 8 bars and then later over 16 bars to bring it in and create some tension. Moving into the second half of the drop, we do have this brass kind of big dark brass lead that I've been using in a lot of my tracks. Another thing from my Patreon, it's really just kind of like a saw wavetable with a ton of distortion, a good filter on it with some resonance, a ton of reverb, that type of ordeal. There's a little fill here that I actually created by stacking. This is for my Patreon as well. I actually created this by stacking 16 detuned voices on top of each other at the same phase point in a wavetable. And when you do this, what happens is that they make a very weird phasing sound because they're not all exactly the same. What I did was add a little bit of attack so I don't get that initial crazy spike of attack out of it, and then just let the kind of swelliness of it do the rest. Also put an LFO on there to shake it kind of over a 16th rate at the end. And then the real sauce of this section is actually this little lead right here. This is, surprise, surprise, also one from my Patreon. It's actually just a kind of wonky pluck that is generated by a square wave and a little bit of a weird 16th note LFO. The cool thing I did here was route a LFO over a bar to the octave here, and what it does is it jumps an octave while it's triggering this 16th note LFO at the same time, and it does some really cool sounds throughout. I also automate the LFO point right here so you can see it open and close. Let's check that out. The sound is actually just following the same melody as the original lead from the song. I just wanted to kind of change it up a bit, make sure I wasn't being too repetitive and just using the original song the whole time. Here's a little fill synth at the end of it too. I actually made this using the same preset. Instead, I turned it into kind of a detuned saw. I messed with the LFO a little bit and turned it into something different. And I really like how complementary these two sounds are with each other. The last melodic piece of this little drop is just that I bring the arpeggiator back in. I really like the way it was interacting with the pluck lead here. And yeah, I think that's basically everything. I'm going to play this for you one more time to send you off. Just know that this is coming out on Wednesday on my SoundCloud, on my YouTube, going to be out for free download on HypeEdit. I really hope you guys like this one. Later this month, I'm going to be breaking down and releasing an Ashanti remix that I did. Really excited about that one as well. Stay tuned. Thank you so much for being subscribers, watchers, listeners, fans, haters. I don't care what you are. I'm here and I'm loving life. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being so dumb.
Till next time.